Welcome to our webinar, Cybersecurity Update, Remote Access, and Safe Computing. I'm Janice Kaplan with the Marketing Department at James Moore & Company. On behalf of our firm, I'd like to thank you for joining us today and apologize for any delays we've had with some technical issues on this side. Our presenter this afternoon is Curtis McAllister, our firm's Manager of Technology Solutions. Curtis leads our Technology Solutions Consulting team, which provides managed IT, technology planning, cloud computing, network and data security, and other technology services to our clients. With over 30 years of experience in information technology, Curtis has pretty much seen it all when it comes to cybersecurity issues. So with all that said, I'll hand things over to Curtis to get the presentation started. Curtis, you're up.
Thanks, Janice. So first off, is there an IT guy on the call? Anyhow, so I like to start my presentations by literally giving away the punchline. So I want to put a thought in the back of your mind. In 1993, a movie was released named Jurassic Park. Some of you may have seen it. The premise of the story is scientists grew dinosaurs out of frogs. At one point in the movie, it was discussed, hey, how do we keep these things from getting out of control? The lead scientist says, well, they're all female, so there's no way to reproduce. One of the other scientists that was on this guy's team commented to that, and his response was, well, life finds a way. And the reason why I'm talking about this is as we spend the next hour together, I want it in the back of your mind that as we go through things and we talk about different things, the bad guys, the bad actors, the people that want to do your business, your organization harm, they're gonna find a way. So let me ask a question, just in general. Who locks their doors? You know, when you left house this morning, who locked the door? When you got wherever you was going, did you lock your car doors? Let's take a moment to answer that.
Okay, this is the first of our 5 polling questions. And just a quick note, you should see the question in a blue box. If you don't see this box, you may need to exit full screen mode to view it. So go ahead and log your vote. Votes are gonna go another 10 seconds or so. Give everyone time. Remember, make sure you answer these questions in order to get your 1.5 CPE credits. And we'll give about 5 more seconds. All right, closing that. And let's go ahead and share the results. Okay, pretty secure group there.
Okay, so most people are locking their doors, which is a good thing. That's always the good first step. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, another lifetime, I mean another lifetime. I remember I pulled up to the gas pumps. I'm in Germany, I'm in the military at this point. Pulled up to the gas pumps to fill up my car. And when I was getting out, I inadvertently hit the car lock and I locked the door. I got out of my car, closed my door, pumped my gas, wouldn't go get back in the car, and I couldn't get in. Front door is locked. A little bit of panic set in. Started walking around the car, and for some happenstance, the back passenger door was unlocked. So I was able to get in, no big deal. Since then, I'm generally pretty good about taking the car keys out of my ignition anytime I stop, having them in my hand, closing my door before I put them in my pocket. Fast forward 15 years. My wife and I we're on our anniversary vacation. We go down to Clearwater Beach. We get to the hotel we're staying at, park in the garage. We end up parking in the basement level. That's just where we found a spot. Park in the basement garage. I get out of the car. She gets out of the car. We go back to the trunk, get one of those luggage dollies, and we start loading up the luggage dolly. No big deal, no big deal. We're loading it up. She goes to the front of the car. She can't get in. The door's locked. Okay. She asked me if I have the keys. Of course I have the keys. For the last 15 years, I take the keys out of the ignition, put them in my pocket, close the door. Well, lo and behold, I didn't do that this time. Looking through the window, the keys are clearly in the ignition. Her door's locked, passenger back door's locked. We check the driver's side. The driver's side is locked. Now, something else about me. Being an IT guy, this may make sense. I'm an introvert, meaning I don't really like to go talk and interact with a bunch of people. On top of that, I'm also a very self-reliant and independent person. Therefore, I'm an independent introvert, meaning when I'm faced with a situation where my keys are locked in my car, what would I do? Most of you would say this is pretty simple. I would go to the front desk, you ask to use their phone. I would call the police. I'd call a locksmith. I'd call AAA. Well, not the independent introvert. The independent introvert says, I got this. The trunk was still open. Everybody knows, in a general four-door sedan, it's fairly easy to drop the back seat. To extend the size of your trunk. So I said, how hard can it be? I start looking in there, fiddling with it. Come to discover, something I didn't know at the time, it's actually really hard to drop the back seat in a Suzuki Esteem from the trunk. Just can't do it. I still got this. My wife being the level-headed person, she's like, well, let's just go call somebody. I'm like, I got this. We're not gonna spend 3 hours waiting for somebody to show up, ruining the start of our vacation. So I climb in the trunk. I start pressing and pushing and pulling on this back seat. And at some point, it becomes personal. I'm getting into this car. I'm going to get into this car. I don't care. I don't need help. I got this. And I remember at one point, I turned around, put my feet up against the back of the seat, which, I mean, the back seat, what is it? It's cloth, it's foam, and it's a thin metal barrier, right? I put my back up against the inside of the trunk. I'm wedged in here, a lot skinnier than I am now. I'm wedged in this thing, put my feet up against it, and I start pushing. And the metal gives. Exactly what I was wanting. That's exactly what I wanted to have happen. I'm feeling a little bit of success now. I start working my way through there, wedging. And after about 30 minutes, I was able to wedge myself in between the metal of the seat and the top of the well of the trunk and reach the back door and open the door. Got in the car, no big deal. We went on about a vacation. Again, most everybody else would have simply called somebody, came out there, a locksmith would have had it popped in 30 seconds. Not my style. The important thing to note, though, is when you look at the security of your home or you look at the security of your car, locking the doors is what everybody does. That's the first step. But if that's the only thing that you do, and you don't look at other avenues of approach, you might be a little more vulnerable than you think. And we're going to talk about some examples of just this in just a little bit. So everybody knows we're talking about cybersecurity. What is cybersecurity? If you look it up online, the definition is measures taken to protect a computer or computer system, such as on the internet, against unauthorized access or attack. Okay, pretty straightforward. Let's break that down a little bit deeper. Access, viewing it, reading it, looking at it, maybe even stealing it, taking it from where it's supposed to be. When we're looking at cybersecurity, the first thing that comes to mind is the bad actors, the hackers out there. They're trying to break into your network, and those are certainly a concern that you need to look at, no doubt at all. But when we're looking at access, we also need to think about internal persons, people on your staff. We're going to talk about a principle in a few minutes called the principle of least privilege. This is going to go in a lot of detail on this, but what we want to look at is sometimes people on your staff, you may have known them for 20 years, they may have been instrumental to the organization for forever, for as long as you can remember, but there's some data that they may not need access to. And while we're talking about cybersecurity, we're not only talking about the bad guys trying to break in, we're also talking about keeping the good guys from places they don't need to go. We're going to dig into that a little bit later. Attack equals manipulation. Deleting something, changing something, maybe even adding data. That's an interesting concept, especially for a government organization, you know, because governments have sunshine laws, they have public records requests. You know, the general concept is, hey, anybody can access our information. All you got to do is ask. We want to see the minute meetings. We want to see emails corresponding to this or that or the other thing. We want to see any number of things. But what is often overlooked, and I say this because of the local governments that I've spoken with about cybersecurity, a common trend comes up where, hey, we need to protect this information. I've gotten numerous times, well, that's all public records. So I have to respond, it is public records, but we not only need to protect it from being mismanipulated, we need to make sure that it's also accurate. You know, our responsibility is to make sure the information that we are providing to that public records request is in fact accurate. And obviously we can't always guarantee, you know, if we get information from a third party, we can't guarantee that those facts on it are accurate, but it is our responsibility to make sure that the information that we are redelivering to the requester is the same information that we got. And then there are cases of people add information that shouldn't be added, delete information, any number of things. Ransomware is a great example of an attack that manipulates, changes the information, and then subsequently can delete the information. So let's start talking about more relevant things, if we can. Real quick, who's still working from home?
Okay, we've got the polling question prompted now. Again, if you try minimizing your screen if you can't see it. I did have a couple people mention they couldn't see it. Who is still working from home, yes or no?
I can't see those, by the way.
Okay. Try giving it a few more seconds, like 5 or 10 more seconds. We got just about everybody in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out the polling question, and let's see what everybody said. Okay, it looks like we got close to 2/3 of people coming back to the office.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So with a lot of people coming back to the office, that's still leaving a lot of people working from home. And what we're seeing, what we're anticipating, you know, as a COVID pandemic slowly fades into history, don't think it's ever really going to truly go away. Neither is the mobile workforce. Many people are coming back to the office. Many people are coming back to a hybrid environment where they are working part-time from the office, part-time from home, or a remote workplace. It's somewhat of Pandora's box. You know, that box has already been opened. People are not going to want to go back to the office full-time because there's a lot of reasons to be remote. I mean, there's efficiencies from working remote when you have the right workforce. Reductions in travel time is amazing. It's not uncommon. Before COVID, it would be routine for me to drive from Gainesville, Florida to Tallahassee, Florida for a meeting, or Gainesville, Florida to Daytona Beach for a meeting. And sometimes I'm going to multiple places. That's a 2.5 hour drive each way. So, you know, if we math that out, I'm going for a 1 hour meeting and I'm driving 5 hours. That's a lot of inefficient time that I could be spending with my clients, with my staff, with projects I'm working on. And I'm one small example. Businesses have seen this numerous times. Before COVID hit, or right at the early onset, its timing is amazing. Weeks, a month maybe tops, before the stay-at-home orders took place in Florida. I had met with a client as part of our normal meetings, and the client, I was having a conversation about trends and about security and about general operations. And one of the things that came up at that time was, you know, mobile workforce. Do you have a mobile workforce? And the owner of the company, the gentleman I was speaking with, he said, we have 1 or 2 people that work a little bit from home, but most of our work cannot be done at home. It's just not practical for us. It has to be done here. We have the resources here. They don't have, we just can't do it. Curtis, it just won't work. 2 weeks after the stay-at-home order was given, I met with the very same client because I got a call that says, Curtis, we're being forced to work from home. What can we do? If our people can't work from home, we can't stay in business. We have to be able to work from home. What can we do? And working together, we found a way to enable their workforce to be able to do that, be able to work from home during COVID. It let the organization keep producing, keep making money. It kept the employees employed, quite frankly. It kept the company, still in the black. Many businesses were in that exact same position. Sometimes, many times, they only think they couldn't work from home because it's not what they've ever done before. We've never worked from home. It's not on our blood. It's not on our DNA. We just don't do that. And then all of a sudden it's, hey, we have to do it or we close the doors. Well, now the work from home is being lifted and things are returning back to normal. What we're finding is people still want to work from home because you know what? They realize that, hey, I can do so much more when I'm not driving. I love the fact I'm not putting miles on my car, burning gasoline, spending hours in traffic every single week. I'm saving money by not going out to lunch every day because I'm eating from my refrigerator. I can spend more time with my kids. I can spend more time with my pets. I can get more done. I can work longer hours from home than I could in the office. Because now I'm also not only seeing longer hours, it's not the 8 to 5 anymore. Now it may be the 7 to 8, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. because I'm breaking it up, 2 hours here, 3 hours there while I take care of things with my kids. So that's the new norm. And business leaders have to kind of start getting used to that. And I think they are. In general, I think they are because they know that people want to work from home and it's convenient and it builds morale, it helps morale. And in a lot of instances, they are seeing productivity go up. And if they're not going up, they're at least not seeing productivity drop. So that means remote access to corporate systems is paramount. And there's 1,000 different ways to get into your corporate network, but there's only a few ways to do it securely. Early on in the pandemic, it was really easy to get remote access, but what a lot of businesses found out the hard way is there are safety protocols that have to be put in place that often were not put in place. And some businesses paid dearly for that. Hopefully the rest of us learn from their unfortunate oversights. Other thing to keep in mind, working from home, you do have to have the right staff, and employees know this. So what's good for one person may not be good for another because there is less oversight. Now, from a cybersecurity perspective, what that means is less oversight means fewer protections. Less oversight means it's harder to maintain those structured policies that prevent the viruses from coming in and the attackers from getting through the gates. Because now, with the attacker used to have to fight the front gate with all its defenses, now they may be able to backdoor in through a remote worker. So what we like to do, what we would encourage all businesses to do, if you're going to have a mobile workforce, issue that mobile workforce computers. Let them use company computers that has company antivirus on it and has company security policies on it. Doing these little things like that can make the difference between a safe working environment for everybody and a bad ransomware attack. And unfortunately, we've seen it numerous times. Something else which is prolific in this environment is the social engineering attacks. Since mobile workforces are not behind corporate firewalls that are blocking things like social media sites and gaming sites and other places that the employee doesn't necessarily need to go to do their job, and often the employee is using their personal computer to remote in, so there's no reason for them not to go to Facebook, even if they're not on the clock. They use that same computer for Facebook or YouTube or whatever. Well, we're seeing more attacks that are being successful. Phishing attacks, everybody's heard of those or seen those, getting an email that looks legitimate, but it's really not. Phishing attacks, employees are getting phone calls. Hey, this is your bank. We've detected a problem. Can you verify your login information for us? That still happens, and unfortunately, people are still falling for it. Smishing attacks. Smishing attacks are SMS attacks from your cell phone, getting text messages. I've gotten like 6 this week, which is good because that's a slow week. Usually I'm getting more. And the thing to note is all these attacks that are coming in, they're coming in all the time. It's nonstop. Just because you may not be seeing it now doesn't mean you're not being attacked. It just means that for whatever reason, it's not surfacing. Maybe your firewalls are protecting it. Maybe your antivirus is protecting it. Maybe for this particular week, they're picking on a different size of organization or different company or whatever. But you're always under constant bombardment, and your staff is always being pounded by these attacks. So it's harder to protect your environment. It's harder to protect your people. Let's talk about a couple recent events. Hopefully this doesn't have any long-term repercussions, but the Colonial Pipeline, this is the most recent event, at least prior to me doing this presentation. Colonial Pipeline, major pipeline in the US, carries massive amounts of fuel oil to multiple states, was hacked by a group out of Russia. This is a professional organization. I remember 20 years ago, when you heard of a hacker, it was a kid that wanted to play around, that wanted bragging rights. Hey, look what I did! I broke into that bank. Look what I did! I broke into that company. I put some little weird virus, little Pac-Man on computers or whatever. It was all bragging rights, and they would get together in their groups and they would brag about what they had done and who they had done it to and what they're going to do next. And it was fun, and they didn't really mean any major harm. Now, obviously, some of them did. I mean, there were some major crashes early on, some major attacks early on. But now it's changed. Now it's a business. And the Colonial Pipeline is a perfect example of the business. This was a Russian group that targeted non-Russian states. To the point, this is amazing. To the point that they had code in their software that read the language setting on the target's computer. And if the language was Russian or one of 17 others, the ransomware software would shut down and go away, would not attack. What is that about? I mean, it's comical to the fact that, wow, who would have ever thought? What that really speaks to is there are a number of nation states, and not picking on any one, but Russia is one of them, China is another. And if they're listening, hey, don't want you to attack me. But these nation states support their activities as long as it's not being done on their soil. They're fine attacking America. Hack America all you want to. Don't hack your back door. Don't hack in your backyard. So this was a great example of a very deliberate, very targeted attack. It was a multi-pronged attack. They had broken into the network. and they sat there for a little while. They watched, which is common, very common. They sat there, they watched for a while. They stole data. They pulled data off the servers, copied it up. After they had sat there long enough, gotten all the information they thought they could get, then and only then did they launch a ransomware attack against the organization, which shut the pipeline down. Now, to be clear, what actually shut the pipeline down was the pipeline. Once the ransomware hit, they realized, oh my God, we have a problem. Let's manage the scope of it. They started turning things off to prevent the ransomware from spreading further. And they started their mitigation tactics, which frankly was the right thing to do, in my opinion. That two-pronged approach is very common. There's actually a company, I proposed to a company a year or so ago that brought me in and we interviewed with them to try to help them because they had been hit with ransomware and they were pretty clear, they were pretty well decided they was not going to pay the ransom. And in the conversation, what they disclosed was a couple things. First off, that they disclosed that what's odd is, 6 weeks before the ransomware attack, the owner of the company got a call from their bank, and it turned to be an actually legitimate call from their bank for once, that was saying that there's unusual activity on their account. Okay. Somehow, somebody compromised the owner's bank account. Luckily, the bank caught it before any real damage was done. But 6 weeks later, they were hit with ransomware. That they asked me, could this be related? My response was, oh yeah, it's definitely related. On average, an attacker will be inside your network for 8 months. 8 months before they're discovered. What this attacker did is actually not unlike what the Russians that attacked Colonial Pipeline did. They sat on the network and they watched. And they gathered data and they pulled information until they figured they had as much information as they was going to get. The last thing they did was launch the ransomware and try and get more money. We see it all the time. Colonial Pipeline was the same way. It's like, hey, pay our ransom, we'll unlock your files. If you don't want to pay our ransom, we have your information. Here's a sample of the information. If you don't pay us, we're going to release this out on the internet and damage your reputation. So Colonial Pipeline was hit from both sides. That's what they do. We've seen it several times ourselves. This pipeline attack, it had unforeseen consequences. And I say unforeseen to the Russian attackers, to the point that they apologized. They literally said, hey, our goal was not to create problems for your people. We just want to get paid. Show me the money. That's all it was. Show me the money. They didn't mean to cause fuel shortages. They didn't mean to cause the airlines to start redirecting flights and canceling flights. They didn't mean to cause panic buying of gasoline, but they did. In the history of ransomware, this is the only time I've actually heard or seen such documented so well that this is just a business for them. That's it. And it also speaks to the fact that this isn't just one guy in his basement anymore. This is a group of people. They clock in at 7 o'clock at night. They clock out at 4 in the morning. That's their job. They're on the night shift. At the end of the day, they go home to their family, just like you or I would. That one was fun. So, not a sports fan, so maybe I get this wrong. Oldsmobile Water, down south Tampa. I believe maybe this was on Super Bowl weekend. Maybe not. I could be wrong. A worker, normal Joe, you or I, sitting on our computer monitoring systems of this water facility, water treatment facility down in Oldsmar. His mouse starts moving. Odd, but he doesn't think anything of it. A couple hours later, mouse starts moving again. This time, the mouse is moving, goes in the program and starts changing numbers on the chemicals. Obviously, this wasn't a mistake. Mouse stops moving, guy gets kicked out of the network. The worker immediately changes the chemicals back, calls his boss, who institutes their reaction plan, and things start happening. What's interesting about this attack is it's rare that the worker, the actual employee of the organization, it's actually rare that they can see the attack, but then to realize that it is an attack. Now, let me back up for half a second. The numbers he changed was only changed for a few minutes, had no meaningful impact on the chemical balance in the water, so there was no threat to the population. Had the worker not been there, there still wouldn't have been much of an impact because of all the safety measures that the water facility has in place to monitor chemical levels. But just the fact that somebody could get in and change numbers is amazing. Now, it's funny. Years ago, everything with me is years ago. Years ago, we were helping set up a new building for a medical facility, and we had these fancy new keyboards that they had purchased. These wireless keyboard and mouse that worked with radio. These things were great, fantastic. They worked well. They had good range. But what we didn't know at the time is when you put 30 of them in a close proximity, you're going to get some overlap. And that's exactly what happened. We got these things in place, and we started getting calls from people on the other side of the building, not really building, but other side of the hallway, 40, 50 feet away, saying, hey, my mouse is moving and I'm not moving it. And there was this big panic. And we thought for certain that there was an attacker that had gotten into the network. Turned out that wasn't the case. Turned out what had happened is 2 or 3 of the keyboards and mice combinations shared radio frequencies. So when John down the hall moved his mouse, it moved Sally's on the other end of the hallway. In hindsight, it was funny, but that's kind of what this guy saw. This guy saw the mouse moving unexpectedly, and it didn't think much of it at first until it did it again, and then until it started deliberately clicking on things. So this attack happened through a remote access tool, a tool used by IT or some other support group to remote into the computer and to solve problems. Could have been problems with the software, could have been problems with the computer. Don't know, doesn't matter in this case, but it was remote access software that's commonly used. That makes it scary. Immediately after this happened, the Oldsmar Water took that software off all of their computers. Now, using remote access software is very common. This type of software for support. There's some protections you need to put in place, such as, I'm going to talk about this in depth in a minute, multi-factor authentication, which would have prevented this from ever happening. That same technology that allowed Oldsmar Water to be compromised is the exact same software that a lot of businesses started using when the pandemic first started. The same software with the same general default configuration. Oldsmar Water is who we heard about and was pointed back to this particular tool. There were others. We're going to talk about how to protect that a little bit more in just a few minutes. So, at the end of 2020, and I know my slide says early, but I'll get to that in a minute. At the end of 2020, maybe not, maybe middle, there was this big report done about how like 21 or 27 local governments in Texas were hacked. Along that same time frame, there's reports about how Microsoft was hacked and all these other places were hacked. Varying levels of damage. Texas had massive ransomware. Probably the biggest unified attack ever reported. This was a tough one. This happened mid to end of 2020. The actual attack started early 2020 and did not start with Texas or with Microsoft or any one of the other dozen organizations that used a common piece of software for remote management. The SolarWinds attack. SolarWinds is a massive software platform, application platform used by IT providers and local IT people to do a number of things. They have one of the most robust, amazingly good tool sets out there. It's fantastic tools when configured properly. But a lot of people use them because they are such good tools. Anyhow, early 2020, an attacker was able to let me roll back to one of our earlier slides, add information into the update services for this particular SolarWinds software used for remote management called Orion. They was able to break in, drop in this malicious code into the update server so that all the users of this software, tens of thousands of them, when they did their normal updates, they did the normal patching of that software, it downloaded the malicious code. The malicious code then gave them access, gave them a back door into their systems, which let them jump into their clients' systems. That's how Texas, all those Texas governments, that's how they got compromised. It was reported about 18,000 companies downloaded that bad patch. And I shouldn't even call it a bad patch. It was malicious software pretending to be a patch. This was one of the largest scale attacks ever reported. This was the long game. What I said a minute ago, most times, in most instances, when you are compromised, the attackers have been in your system for 8 months or more. That was the same case here. They were in for so long, they interjected that software, and then they just waited. It's a business. Why not wait? I mean, as governments, we have long-term plans, right? Hey, we want to put in a new road. So let's start talking to DOT. Let's start mapping that out. That's our 5-year plan or our 10-year plan. We want to move City Hall. We want to build a new courthouse. These are all long-term plans. SolarWinds attack, by the way, was also another Russian hacking group. Same thing, long-term project. Boss, we got in. We're into SolarWinds. We have this code. What do we want to do? Build a code. Build an exploit. Built it. Let's interject it into their update server, and then stay quiet. Don't raise a flag. Don't make any noise. Leave SolarWinds alone. Put the code in their servers, and kind of just go away for all practical purposes. Because you don't want to alert anybody that you're there. And then we just wait. They play the long game. They let it set. And more people updated it. And then at some point, somebody said, you know what? We got enough. Let's go. And that's what happened. So just out of curiosity's sake, who has heard of all 3 of these attacks?
Okay, that's our third polling question. Who's heard the attacks? You've heard of all of them, some of them, or no, you haven't heard of any. Go ahead and log your answers now, please. And we'll give it about 10 more seconds, so please get those answers in. I'm assuming most of them have heard of at least one.
At least one.
Pipeline, yeah.
Yeah, the pipeline was just a few weeks ago.
So.
Why are my gas prices going up?
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close it out, and let's share the results now. Yeah, most of everybody's heard at least one of them.
Okay.
If you've heard of all, that's good.
Yes, that's very good. A lot of times these things are kept quiet. Because it's embarrassing knowing that you got hit. So what do you do? What do we do? Here's the thing. It's actually really easy to prevent these. And I say that completely facetiously, completely joking. We're not trying that word again ever. the concepts are not hard. The execution is super tough. So 4 steps that everybody can take to minimize, and I'm going to say minimize, to minimize the risk of being compromised. Now, these are not in any particular order, except for number 1. So we're going to run through these. Zero trust. Love zero trust. Super hard to do zero trust in most environments. Zero trust is simply you never trust, you always verify. What that means, quite literally, is yes, I know who you are. Yes, I've known you for 30 years, but you know what? You still got to show me your ID card. Got to do it. I mean, everybody's seen the Mission Impossible movies with the big rubber masks and such, right? They can get away with it. Most of us really can't because that's movie magic. But that's what we're talking about. Always verify who, what, when, where. Always. So we're going to break this down into 3 separate categories. People, devices, and network. People's at top for a reason. So I mentioned the principle of least privilege a little while ago. Super critical. What the principle of least privilege is, you don't give anybody access to anything they do not need. Simple as that, no more complicated than that. If Curtis does not need to access that network drive, do not give Curtis access to that network drive. Is there anything on that network drive which is critical or sensitive? Maybe not. But does Curtis need to do his job? No, he doesn't. Don't give it to him. I cannot emphasize this enough. And this is where many organizations fall short, especially governments, when they start thinking, hey, everything's public records. Anybody can ask for anything. Well, no, they can't. Or they can ask, but you don't have to give some things. You don't have to give personal identifying information. You don't have to give social security numbers. And even if you do, you control how that information is delivered. So principle of least privilege, don't give anybody anything they do not need to do their job. That could be at the application level. Hey, Curtis does not need to access this software. Don't give it to him. That could be at the file level and folder level. Hey, Curtis doesn't need access to the payroll folder to do his job. Don't give it to him. In some cases, that may even be email. I have one client that they have 200 plus employees, but only 20 of them actually need external email. Everybody else needs internal email. So what do? We don't give that other 180 people access to internet email. They can communicate internally, right? They can talk to each other, but not with the outside world because they don't need it to do their job. Super critical. Next one, multi-factor authentication. This is becoming more popular, which is fantastic. Banks have been doing it for years. You go to sign on to your bank and it asks you for a PIN number that it sends to your cell phone. Or maybe you have a key fob. For a while they was doing these key fobs before smartphones really got a good footprint. Where okay, I want to log into my bank account, but they gave me this little key fob that has a number that rotates and changes every 60 seconds. Multi-factor authentication is using something that you have and something that you know. I have my password and I know my passphrase. Or I have my key fob and I know my password. Or I know my magic PIN number and my computer can see my face. What you have, what you know, super hard to be hacked. Earlier, Oldsmar Water, if they had multi-factor authentication on that remote access software, bad guy couldn't have got in. Because knowing the password, knowing the username is not enough. Yeah, I got the username. Yeah, I got the password. But if I'm not getting that code, that verification code, does me no good. If I don't have my dongle or my key fob, does me no good. So multi-factor is super important. Things with multi-factor. You can do it a couple different ways. You can do it on the application level. For example, the easiest one, the one that's right in everybody's face is email. Multi-factor for your email. That's a great start because most attacks come in via email. Phishing comes in via email. You can also do it at the system level, which is much better, but harder. The system protects everything. An application multi-factor protects that application. My bank is protected, but my payroll system isn't. You do a system level multi-factor authentication, and now you have to have multi-factor to get into your computer. That's a lot more protection. A lot more things goes into making that happen, but when you have it, it makes your environment very secure. Another thing to consider is continuous authentication. This is the always verify. You walk away and you go to lunch. You lock your computer. Ideally, in the best, in the good, strong environments, you can't just walk up and unlock your computer by looking at it or pressing the space bar. You have to log back in. I've gone to lunch. It's me. Log back in. And ideally, you use a multi-factor. So log back in with your username, password, and your multi-factor authentication token, just to make sure that between the time you left your seat and get back, the bad guy doesn't come in and pretend to be you. So continuously authenticating your logins can be a pain in the butt. They can. No argument. You're right. It's a nuisance. Oh my God, I was on a 15-minute phone call. I have to log back in again. Yes, you do. But the alternative could be, oh my God, we have to call the newspapers and report that we've been hacked. And we have 10,000 clients that has their data compromised. Okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to talk to CNN? Or do you want to take an extra second to log in? It's really up to you. And then monitoring. Somebody has to be looking at these things. Look at the security log, see who is logging in, both success and fail. Because successes can tell you that can give you good information too. If you see fail, Curtis has tried to log in 5 times, and on the 6th time he got in, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, everybody knows Curtis doesn't work at 3 o'clock in the morning unless something is really, really bad. Something's off. Look at the logs, and I'm not saying you need to look at it real time. That's not practical for most businesses. It's just not. But reviewing the logs on a regular basis is practical and encouraged, and I'm going to even say necessary. Looking at the logs can shorten that window from I've been compromised for 8 months to maybe I've been compromised a week or yesterday. So it's important to do that. Who now is using MFA?
See how secure everyone's being. This is our 4th polling question. Go ahead and log in. Go ahead and give it another 10 seconds to get your vote in. Again, if you can't see the screen, please let us know or minimize your main screen to see if that helps. Okay, about 5 more seconds. And we're going to go ahead and close it out now, and let's share the results. Nearly 60% of people are using multi-factor authentication.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's fantastic. MFA by itself increases your protection tenfold. And like most other statistics that you'll see if you're browsing the internet, completely made up. But it does work. Okay, devices, zero trust with devices. Pretty straightforward. Same things apply. You want to be able to authenticate the device as well. And if your users are using corporate computers, that's typically very easy to do. On the other hand, if you're using personal computers, BYOD, bring your own device, that's a lot harder. You can't really validate those computers. Now, even in a BYOD approved environment, you can still validate some aspects of it. Hey, we need some evidence that you have antivirus installed. We need some evidence that you're doing this. You need some evidence that you're doing that. We can put those systems in place to give you that validation on a BYOD device, but generally speaking, you just want to do, if you can, a corporate issue device, because you get to encrypt it and control that encryption and control and manage the encryption keys. You also want to make sure that the device has consistent security policies. They can't do this. Maybe you can't run USB devices. You can't use USB memory sticks. Maybe you can't use a web camera. Maybe you can't use a floppy drive. Anybody have floppy drives anymore? I know you don't. But that's what you look at for devices. And we're talking about devices. We also want to talk about our favorite device, the cell phone. Now, most of the time, you do not have issued cell phones, but I have clients that do. And when you have an issued cell phone, you maintain policies, encryption, security rules on those devices, just like you would a laptop or a tablet. It's imperative that you do so. If you allow people to use their private cell phones to talk to your corporate data, limit what they can access. Super important. We're talking about the network. We're talking about, the core infrastructure of your business. Your switches, for example, your routers, your access points. A trend which is growing is building a perimeterless environment. And all that means, let me back up. When I say perimeterless, historically, you can look at your network and the cybersecurity around it as a castle with a moat. The moat is a very clear perimeter. The one gatekeeper, the drawbridge, is your firewall. The archers that's overlooking that drawbridge, those are your firewall policies, right? They're going to choose what gets to come across that drawbridge and what doesn't. Well, that's traditional and that works pretty well. But as we're looking at zero trust, as we're looking at better protection of the network resources, which is what we really care about, you don't really care about the server itself, right? The server is it's a piece of hardware, it's a box. What you care about is the application running on that server. You care about the data on that server. So a trend which is becoming more and more popular is going perimeterless. So you don't really have the moat around the castle. But what you have now is a barrier around that resource, that application, that data, whatever it is, you're putting a barrier around that. Now, you're not getting away from the moat. The moat's still there, but you're not just relying on it. You know it's there and you know that somebody can get across it. So you're adding another layer around that resource. And yes, it can cause some inconvenience. It may slow things down a little bit, but the protection it provides is significantly better. Is anybody practicing zero trust now?
Let us know. We're getting close to full. We're waiting another 10 seconds or so. Let's get those votes in. Okay, we're going to close out the poll now. This is our last polling question, by the way. And here are the results. 43% are not entirely sure.
Okay.
I got about almost 20% who do that.
The 20% is good. The not entirely sure actually is not unexpected. Again, zero trust is really hard to implement. Most of the time, what happens is there's pieces and parts of the zero trust philosophy. So I'm not surprised about those results. So the next thing, user awareness. This is just education. The biggest thing to keep in mind is helping the users understand why we're doing these things. And I'll tell you, I'm feeling parched, so I'm going to take a drink of water. What? That's not water? It's not water. I deceived you, right? I said it's water. It's obviously not water, but that's exactly what phishing, smishing, and vishing does. Train your users. It's telling you one thing. Hey, I'm your bank. I'm the IRS. I'm somebody that you should trust, is what I'm telling you. In reality, I'm really not. I'm drinking water when in reality, maybe this is rum and coke. We don't know. That's the point. Train the users on the policies and procedures. Train them on why. The why is the instrumental. if they don't understand why we're doing this, why do I have to authenticate every time I leave my computer for 10 minutes? Why do I have to be careful about emails I'm clicking on? Why this, why that? If they don't understand why, they're not going to have buy-in, they're not going to do it. So the why is the most important thing. Next thing is security monitoring. Now, I touched on monitoring a minute ago as it pertains to, user logons and such. When I'm talking about security monitoring, now we're looking at deeper monitoring of various things. Applications. Who's logging into your application? Who's logging into that payroll system? Who's logging into your HR system? Who's logging into your email system? And when they're logging in, what's going on? Now, that may sound a little bit like Big Brother, not intended to be, but you do want to be aware of common trends so you can see anomalies. And there's bunches of tools to help you do this. You want to look at the firewall. I mentioned earlier, you're under constant attack. If you looked at your firewall logs, you would see a constant bombardment all the time, day in and day out, getting pounded. That's what it's there for. That's why you have it. Let it do its job. Keep an eye on it. Because like any good system, there's always a vulnerability. Nothing's foolproof. And if you're not watching your firewall logs, if you're not looking for trends, and you're not flagging and alerting on the more severe items, eventually something will get in, and you'll have a guy roaming around your network for 8 months before you get hit with ransomware. Network. Network is everything. It's the switches, it's the computers. You want to monitor those things. There's technology that you can put in place that can tell you, hey, Sally has logged into this computer. Sally doesn't normally log into this computer. Our Curtis is trying to access this file. Curtis isn't supposed to be trying to access this file. Curtis knows he doesn't have access to this file. Why is Curtis trying? You can put software and systems in place to help tell you that. Those are inside the firewall. Those are inside the network. Those are watching activity. And it's not because you don't trust Curtis or Sally. It's because maybe Curtis or Sally's account gets compromised somehow, right? And you definitely don't trust the guy that compromised their account. But you want to look at that sort of thing. You want to keep aware of what's happening on your network. Very critical to do so. Now, that's going to fail. You're going to put the moat in place. You're going to double the archers. You're going to put big walls with concertina wire on top of them around your resource, around your applications. You're going to train your users on what to look for, what they need to do when they see something, what not to do, and you're going to tell them why, and they're going to know why, and everything is going to be right in the world, and you're going to be protected, and you're going to be safe, and nobody is ever going to get in, but they will. They will. I got into my car because I wanted into my car. Its locks were in place. Its locks worked. They did the job. But I wanted into my car. I got into my car. Somebody will get into your environment if they want in. It's going to happen. You can't stop it. I can't stop it. We can make it harder. We can discourage it. But it's going to happen. When that happens, your last line of defense, your last safety net, the only thing you have that will protect you is your backups. Data backups are critical. And we're not going to get into the type of backup, disaster recovery type, business continuity backups, or just data. We're not going to get into that. But what we are going to get into is a couple key attributes of your backup. Multi-layer. You want multiple backups. 2 is 1, 1 is none, right? Multiple backups. On-site backup, off-site backup. Off-site backup, alternate off-site backup. Off-site backup, remote site backup. Multiple backups, multiple strategies. And you can tailor those based on the load. This server may only need backed up once a week because it doesn't really change. Your database server, however, which handles your work orders for your utility department, it may need to get backed up every hour. Look at that. You want to air gap your backups. Make sure that your backups cannot be directly accessed from any traditional computer on your network. I know that sounds weird. Well, if we can't access it, how can it back it up? It can be set up that way. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that if your network gets compromised by the bad guys cannot kill your backups. We've seen this numerous times that somebody gets into the network, the first thing they do is they kill the backups. They trash the backups. The second thing they do often is kill the logging. And then they launch a ransomware attack or the malicious code or whatever. So make sure that it's called air gapping. Make sure your backups are air gapped. And again, multi-layered backups, make sure all your backups are air gapped. You should not be able to use the same credentials that you log in to your corporate network with to access the backup network. Ideally, the backup network cannot be seen without jumping through a whole bunch of hoops from the corporate network. You want to monitor the backups. You want to make sure they're doing their job. Don't believe it when they say they're working. We check backups every single day. The logs say the backup's good. Look at things in the backup. When you're checking it, don't just look for that green check that says, hey, we're good. Look at how much data is being backed up and compare it to the night before. If you see more than about a 5% change in backed up data, you need to explain why it's changed. Did somebody add a bunch of files? Did somebody remove a bunch of files? Did a server get dropped off the list by mistake? Did something happen? Look for that sort of thing. How much time did it take to back up? Hey, my backups always take 3.5 hours to back up each night. Last night they took 7. Why'd they take 7? Answer the question. If you don't answer the question, you're setting yourself up for disaster. And test them. Don't trust the logs. At least at a minimum, once a month, grab some of that backup data and put it back on a server somewhere and say, is this data right? Can I access it? Can I look at it? A better solution, if you do have one of the nicer solutions, spool up the server. Run that server. Does it boot? Can I get into it? Make sure it's working. If you're not making sure it's working, then when the bad guy gets in, and they're gonna get in, just like I got in my car, when a bad guy gets in, if you're not testing your backups, you may be in for a very unfortunate surprise, and I do not want that to happen to you. Don't want it to happen to you. So in summary, to kind of wrap everything up into a very easy to understand and follow theme. Don't trust anybody. I like to say keep a healthy level of paranoia. Understand that there is no easy answer. There is no, Captain America's shield. There is no magic solution. So do what you know needs to be done. Understand the bad guys are always going to get in, so take appropriate measures to protect your resources. The more levels of protection that you have, the better you will be, because the bad guys, the hackers, the bad actors out there will always find a way. Always. So, call to action is very simple. First off, accept inconvenience. Allow a little bit more inconvenience into you and your staff's lives. And multi-factor, it doesn't add that much time when you come back from lunch, but it can save you tens of thousands of dollars, and it can save you much longer in recovery time. We had one client that was hit with a ransomware attack, severe ransomware attack. It took over a week to get them back to 100%. For the better part of that week, they could not function. Now, unfortunately, they also failed to have backups and a number of other things, but it can happen. And it's not just the cost of paying the ransom, it's the cost that you cannot work and serve your people. Challenge your IT. Ask them the tough questions. And when they tell you, yes, my backups are good, yes, our data is secured, ask them to prove it. How do you know my backups are good? What have you done to make sure my backups are good? Have you done a test restore, and when? How often? How do you know Curtis cannot get to this folder? When was the last time you did an audit of your folder structure? When was the last time you did an audit of our security measures? Ask the questions. And in the event that they don't have something right, let them fix it. Raise that flag, let them fix it. They'll get it right. They'll take care of you. Any questions?
Okay, we do actually have a few viewer questions here. One asks, can an attacker get access to my network through my cell phone?
Maybe, not necessarily directly. Depending on what data you have on your cell phone, an attacker could gain information from your cell phone that can help them break into your network. You know, if you're surfing Facebook on your cell phone, and you have a VPN access from your cell phone to your corporate network, not many people would, but maybe you do. There's definitely some risk there, but typically that will rely on the information, depend on the information you have on that cell phone.
Okay, somebody also asked about, they had a question with the water plant attack. You mentioned the attackers used a remote access support tool. How is that different than what our IT is doing when they support us?
May not be any different at all. Something to ask your IT is, do they have multi-factor authentication enabled on their systems, on their support tools? That's the biggest question. If they do, you're probably in good shape. If they say, I'm not sure, it's something you need to push. We, for example, have multi-factor on our stuff. So we can't provide support to somebody without going through our own multi-factor process just to get into our own systems. That's what they should be doing as well.
Okay, one more. Our IT tells us we have good backups, but how can we be sure?
The only way to be sure is have them prove it. The way they would prove it is by demonstrating that they've done restore tests. Show me logs, show me reports that you can show. Give me something in writing that says I copied this data from your backups to this location on the server and the sizes matched up, or I booted up this server on this date. Some type of physical representation that, yeah, I physically confirmed that the data is in fact accessible. Now, even doing that, there's no guarantee that all the data is going to be there when you need it. Backups are notorious for failing and acting up. That's why they should be checking them every day. But generally speaking, if they can give you some form of log and preferably something they could generate within a few minutes because they already have it, then you can at least have a level of confidence that they're doing the right things and things are working like they should. I'll tell you, one of the examples I gave earlier about a local company that was hit with ransomware, the insurance company, their cyber liability policy refused to pay any damages on that because the investigator deemed that the organization was not doing the things that they should have been doing at a basic level to protect themselves. So keep that in mind. If you're not taking the minimum level of steps, and that minimum level changes all the time, if you're not taking those steps, your cyber liability policy may not protect you.
That's actually all the questions we have. Thank you, Curtis, for this really important information I think we're all needing in this day and age. If you still have any questions on today's topic, Curtis's contact information will appear shortly on your screen. Please feel free to contact him. He's happy to help with any concerns that you might have. We'll show you. We're gonna show your information on the screen now, Curtis.
Oh yeah, I should probably click that button, shouldn't I? My bad.
Thank you. There it is. Okay, so there's Curtis right there. You can contact him if you have any other questions. On the next slide, you're going to see the rest of our CPE series topics for the year. You can click on each link directly to go to that particular registration page. They're also available on our website. And below that, you'll see the link to complete the evaluation for this CPE and attain your credit. Remember, you need to complete that survey in order to get your 1.5 hours of credit. It's been our pleasure to bring this information to you today. So thank you again for joining us. Have a great rest of the day, and please continue to stay safe and healthy. Have a great one.